Welcome back to another lesson and another wonderful blessing with yours truly, your domestic issues counselor, Mr. James Horton. All right, welcome back to my class. I'd like to invite you to subscribe and ask you a request from you all to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget, I want to constantly remind you, because sometimes we can all get caught up in watching some coverage, some film coverage, and we can forget to push the subscribe button. This is a togetherness thing that I push to support your brother, to push to support yourself, support your community, and just be involved and have something to do with someone rising up. Also, what you put out, you find yourself getting back. If you put negativity out, right, you'll get negativity back. You can look in your latest newspapers or websites, and you see it all the time, news channels, right? What we put out, we tend to get back, So I just ask you to, let's practice on putting some positivity out, all right? This paper today is called Our Presumptions, Our Domestic Assumptions. Our Presumptions and Our Domestic Assumptions is what it's called, all right? And let's see here. Our presumptions and our domestic assumptions, right? And presumptions are more like assuming something, assuming, oh, I know what's going on, and others are saying the same thing. They know what's going on, and really they have no basis and no facts to what's going on, and many of us are wrong, You can have something, but you got to have some kind of proof to really, really get you there. All that guessing and predictions and, pretending that you're a palm reader, that's a whole nother something. So, to each his own. All right, it says, our presumptions and domestic assumptions. What are assumptions? What are presumptions and assumptions? Assumptions are powerful little numbers masquerading as facts. They see you making choices based on a little more than a good guess or good guesses. Presumptuous attitudes or conduct, audacity, and attitude are beliefs dictated by probability. Assumptions. It says the ground, reason, or evidence leading probability to a belief. Assumption is a noun related to a verb, assume, and refers to the act of taking for granted or supposing something. Likewise, presumption is a noun related to the verb presume and refers to a belief or a reasonable ground or probable evidence. Please answer the following questions. Number one says, assumption, presumption. Are most of your presumptions really assumptions, and are most of your assumptions really presumptions, right? Or, are most of your presumptions assumptions, and most of your assumptions really presumptions, right? Oh man, I'm telling you, man, I know, I can feel it. Yeah, right, let's move on. All right, number two, assumption, presumptions. Does your presumptions and your assumptions fuel your functions, or does your assumptions stop you from functioning, right? Because you can be so caught up, and we can be so caught up in assuming something. We spend our whole day assuming. We spend our whole day sharing our assumptions with other people, trying to get them to tag on and join on and jump in so they can help fuel what your beliefs are, right? And many times people get hurt. People get hurt because we're trying to figure it out. People are in the streets trying to say, "Ooh, I think so-and-so is the one who told. I think so-and-so is the one who told." I mean, they didn't even know that I was out there hustling. I was out there selling drugs. But they got cameras in your neighborhood, and you dressed the part. You put your sweatsuit on. Back in the day, you had your donkey rope on, and you just dressed up for the part. And then you got all this money in your pocket. But you say somebody told on you. Probably right. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you that told on you. All right, number three, presumptions and domestic assumptions. During your early childhood, when you were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you presume and assume that you would be something greater than what you became? Right? Presumptions and domestic assumptions. During your early childhood, when you were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you presume and assume that you would be something much greater than what you have become? Right? We're talking about that question when you were young, those Halloween outfits you put on when you was little. It wasn't just at Halloween. We put different uniforms on, or made up uniforms. We watch certain shows, Hawaii Five-O, The Streets of San Francisco. Oh, I want to be a police. And many times we said many things and found ourselves becoming something totally different than what we thought or what we said we would be at that younger age or during that upbringing and uprising and maturing, right? So did you want to be that? And it's still not too late to become what you want to be when you grow up, because the maturity level is down also, right? To where one said that, many people said at one time that when you make 18 that you're grown, but many of us have not become grown yet due to a lack of or slowdown of maturing to an adult level in our ways and our actions. It's not just getting a little gray hair in your head to grow up. It's much more than that. It's being responsible. It's having your own key. It's paying your own way, and a host of other things. All right, number four. Presumptions, domestic assumptions. Did you and do you know when you have doubt, you will do it out? When you have doubt, you will do it out. So watch out for the word assumptions and presumptions, because in that you can find that you are really doubtful because you're not really confident, because you're in a mode of assuming and presuming, right? Number 5, presumptions, domestic assumptions. When it comes to outlining your behavior and the way you treat or cheat your family and others, are most of your behavioral treatments based on presumptions, or are they based on domestic assumptions, right? Presumptions, domestic assumptions. When it comes to outlining your behavior and the way you treat or cheat your family and others, are most of your behavioral treatments based on presumptions or domestic assumptions, right? We have, many of us, we're still kids, and a lot of us are really immature, and we treat people and treat our families like, they're not really important until we get in trouble. And we presume, like getting into trouble, man, you presume that you're going to be able to get rescued by those that you never listened to. You're going to be able to say, all I got to do is call mama or grandma and them. They love me so much. But at the time, before the trouble, before you get exposed, your behavior is just way out there, right? Just way out there. Because you find yourself assuming that you're going to always be rescued, right? Okay, number 6. Presumptions, domestic assumptions. Describing your relationship history with a partner. Are most of your relationships based on presumptions or domestic assumptions, right? Presuming that, just to put a cap on it, sometimes we say, oh, it's the good relationship we doing. I got a wonderful relationship. Have you asked your partner how they feel? Because it's a 2-part thing. It's not a one-way street. You cannot be the only judge and the person that's doing the description of the relationship by yourself. It takes 2. You might be happy, but doesn't mean that the other person is happy. You might be terrible in a relationship, and the other person might be great. So watch out for assumptions and presumptions, right? Watch out. Number 7, presumptions, domestic assumptions. When you first got caught for breaking the law or causing havoc, did you presume or assume your mama would bail you out Did you presume when you got out that you could do it all over again until the time you received said it's gonna be a while before you can get out again. So we as I said before, you know, we call it mama when we get in trouble, and you bailed out, right? Or they bailed you out, and you swore when you was in there that you would never do it again, but yet you did it again, and you assume that it's gonna be all right. But there's other things that happen because you don't always get right out. Sometimes they stick you with something that you never thought would be a sticking or a tag on you. You never thought that you would see 20 years or 30 years or whatever. And you're like, that's too long. I mean, why? Why is it too long now? You know, some folks, when I was coming up, always explained to us that know the time before you do the crime. Know the time before you do the crime. Many people know that banks have a lot of money, or they assume they have so much money that they can go in a bank maybe one time or two times and be set for life. But if you get caught, whatever the amount you may receive or try to receive, if you get caught, and depending on how you rob the bank, dictates and describes the time that you would get, right? There's a possibility with one particular robbery, if a gun goes off, if a person is shot, that robbery can turn into a good 20 to 25 years, right? And along with if you've done other robberies. So be mindful and think before you act. Number 8, presumptions, domestic assumptions. Did you know when it comes to assuming and presuming, most people do the best they can in the class that they're in, right? When you assume and presume, it shows something about you. It's almost like when I speak, I tell the world who I am, and I tell the world basically what I'm thinking. But at many times, you know, I try, and you can try to not take it too personal, because people do the best they can in the class they're in. And you'd be like, well, it doesn't make any sense. Well, they're not in the same class as you. They didn't go to the same elementary school or junior high school or high school that you went to, let alone college. But so people do the best they can in the class they're in. All right. Number 9, presumptions, domestic assumptions. Are you known to confuse pain with pleasure and pleasure with pain? Right? Do you confuse pain with pleasure and pleasure with pain? Right? And when you're out there in a situation, lost into an addiction, when you're out there going to jail and getting these sentences, as I said earlier, you know, you, instead of looking at the painful situation, you call it pleasure, right? You keep going back to jail. You thought that the first time you got caught, you would never return. So many people, even in relationships that's very unhealthy and abusive, they confuse pain with pleasure and pleasure with pain. All right? Number 10, presumptions and domestic assumptions. Did you know assumptions and presumptions are signs of weakness and a lack of faith and fact? Despair, assumptions, and presumptions are known as sins against hope, right? Presumptions, domestic assumptions. Are you known to, it says, presumptions, domestic assumptions. Did you know assumptions and presumptions are really signs of weakness, right? It's a weaker side. It's not a confident side. It's not a strong side. And it's a lack of faith also, because you really, really, really are assuming or presuming, right? It's a lack of faith within where one should be when they're riding on something, when you're going with something, when you're believing something about yourself or someone else, right? And assumptions and presumptions are known also as sins against hope. You know, it's sins against the thing they call hope. All right, that's going to be it, you guys, for today's lesson, right? And today's blessing, right? From yours truly, your domestic issues counselor, Mr. James Horton. Subscribe to my class. So how many times do I have to tell you and express the subscribe. It's not hard, right? It's one of the easiest things you can ever do. Just push the subscribe button, and I'll be back, and I'll keep you fed and lifted up. And believe me, we all need a lift. We all need a pull up. Not a pull down, but a pull up. Thank you again.